Hi, welcome back to the Distressed Princess. I'm Rhonda, and in today's video, I'm giving some Facebook Marketplace bar stools a makeover. You know those projects that you have that you've been meaning to get to for quite some time? Well, this is just one of mine. I've had these bar stools for, I'd say, at least 5 years. My sister actually found them for me on Facebook Marketplace. I bought both of them for $15, and I've been meaning to paint them or do something with them for all this time. So I'm going to paint these bar stools using Kills chalk paint in the color Toasted Poppy Seed, and I'm going to seal them with Annie Sloan's clear wax. And I'm using these items because that's what I have, and I like to use what I already have, so it's very budget friendly for me. The first thing to do in any project like this is prep the furniture and remove any stickers, and then you want to wipe it down really well. If you feel like anything has grease on it, then you want to use a degreaser, but at the very least use a multi-purpose cleaner. The right kind of paintbrush can make all the difference in a project like this, and I like to use this small Wooster brush. It's very soft bristles, and it fits well in the hand so your hand doesn't get all crampy, and it can fit around under those spindles. When applying the paint, I like to start out going with the same grain as the wood and do long strokes if I can, but of course when you have to get around the legs of things, then you wind up going in all directions. So just try to stick with one direction though in the end so that there's the least amount of brush strokes and differences in the direction the paint is going. And this is Kills chalk paint that I got at Walmart. It was about $20 for this can, and I actually bought it by mistake a long time ago. I thought I was buying black chalk paint, but in fact it is a dark gray. So even though I didn't use it for the project I initially bought it for, I'm glad it's finally getting some use because I was kind of scared to go completely black on these bar stools. So this is a nice compromise. It's a nice chalky dark gray. Now my problem with painting furniture is always where to start and planning ahead and thinking about, okay, you're gonna have to touch this furniture to move it around, and you don't want to paint over, put paint on a piece that you're gonna have to touch to move it later. I always have this issue. So I tried to really think about it this time, and that's why I started with the underside first. And now I'm going to paint up all the legs, but not all the way to the bottom of the legs, so that I have a piece sticking out so that I can rotate and turn this bar stool when I'm ready to paint the next leg. And here's what I'm talking about. I left the bottoms of each leg unpainted until I left that for almost the very last thing. And when you're trying to paint around spindles, or any furniture really for that matter, any piece, you want to try to make your paint go a long way. You don't want it to be gloppy, you don't want it to be thick, and you definitely don't want any drips. So try your best, and I know it's hard when there's like ridges like I'm having to work around with these spindles, but try your best not to have it caking anywhere. So I did all 4 legs first, with the exception of the very bottom, so I could have something to hold on to turn. Now I'm going to go back and do all the center spindle pieces. If you are intimidated about painting furniture, I highly recommend get a can of chalk paint, try chalk paint, because it is my number one thing to use. I've used latex paint before chalk paint became so popular, and chalk paint by far goes on so much better, and there's no prep really other than making sure your project is clean beforehand. You can see that this was shiny, glossy, oak on these bar stools, and this chalk paint will stick to it just perfectly. And also, since we're going to seal it with anti-Sloan wax at the end, or of course you can use polyurethane or your sealant of choice, these bar stools are going to hold up great. After the center spindles were done, then I finally painted the bottoms of the legs. And now, how am I turning this? Because by the time you get to the bottoms of the legs, the top part that you did first is already dry to the touch. So you can touch it to turn your bar stool. And that is another reason why chalk paint is so wonderful, because it dries so fast. And then after the legs are dry, you can finally paint the top. And before you do that, you want to wipe off where any paint might have gotten onto the top of the bar stool. And then make sure it's really dry. And I don't know if it's because I saved it for last, but painting the tops of these bar stools was really satisfying. And again, I'm going in the same direction with my brush strokes, the same direction of the wood. I want you to see that it is not perfect. It's not going to look great on the first coat, but that's okay, because the second coat is going to take care of all of that. See how smooth that is in all its chalky glory? And if you're curious, I think that each coat took me about 15 minutes, so not a whole lot of time. The next part is a personal preference, but I choose to distress my bar stools, and I'm using some sandpaper that I already had. It came from Dollar Tree. It's cheap. I had to go through probably 4 pieces of it to get both of my bar stools done, but hey, it was just $1. Now, I strategically picked just little places that I feel like would get worn on a bar stool. I didn't want all of it distressed everywhere. I just picked like the ridges where your feet would go on the spindles and where it might get banged around in the kitchen, especially around the feet. And I worked on the bottom part first, and then I'm going to save the top for last. Usually when I'm distressing something, there'll be a spot that I have sanded or distressed that I particularly love. And in this piece, it is that leg to the left. See that top ridge of sanding where my left hand is? That was my favorite one on this. On the tops, I wanted the distressing to go all around the top edge, pretty much. Not in a complete circle. I didn't want a whole circle of distressing, just in places, but almost around the whole thing. And I also wanted to make some worn places on the top where you can tell that these bar stools have been sat in a lot. And then the final bit of sanding was to go around the bottom edge of the top piece. After your beautiful distressing is finished, then you want to go over the whole piece with a damp cloth to remove any of that sandpaper dust or any of the sanded off paint. The last step of the makeover is to seal all of your work in with some sort of sealant. Now, I already had Annie Sloan wax because it was left over from when I redid my mom's kitchen cabinets, and it works really well, and it's what I had. And I already had the Annie Sloan brush. Now, admittedly, this is an expensive brush. My mom had bought it. I probably wouldn't have bought it myself. They have similar brushes at Walmart to this, and for like $15. So I would do that. Also, the instructions say that you can use just a soft cloth. Now you saw I just had a little bit on the brush. The directions say that a little goes a long way. You want to apply it like lotion. Less is more, and you want to push it into the wood. Instead of painting it on, you really want to try to push it into the wood and get it spread out evenly. Once you've worked with this wax for a little while, then you really get used to what it's doing and the consistency, and you get a feel for it a lot better the longer you're working with it. So at first I really didn't know if I was applying it correctly, but then you can definitely tell in the end that there's wax applied and it's going to harden nicely, and it just gives the piece an overall finished look like store-bought. As I finished with each leg, I went back and wiped back over because you need to wipe off any excess. And this is where the magic happened for me. When you wipe this wax back off, yeah, you can tell that it is so nice. And then the last part again was the top. So I applied maybe just a hair bit more to the top, just because, I don't know, it made me feel like it was going to be sealed better. And I went all around the edges, and I tried to really push that wax in by going in circles too. This next piece of video, I could watch over and over again. When you rub that wax off, look how beautiful. Look how beautiful it makes that chalk paint go. Just satiny, like butter. And here's a reminder of what the bar stools looked like before I painted them. And here they are now. So I hope I've inspired you to take a second look at those garage sale bar stools and know that you can transform them with just a little bit of time and some chalk paint. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more budget DIYs, then just click the link that I provided right here for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.